The airport was bustling, the constant hum of announcements mixing with the hurried footsteps of travelers dragging their luggage behind them. Among them, Daniel, a single father, clutched his son, Ethan, by the hand. The boy's small backpack bounced with every step, a crumpled picture of his mother tucked inside a pocket, as if to remind Daniel of why he had to be strong. Daniel's heart was heavy, yet determined. He had promised Ethan a life filled with love, despite the absence of the woman who had once made it complete. Daniel had worked tirelessly for years, juggling 2 jobs, paying the bills, attending parent-teacher meetings, and cooking meals that often consisted of whatever was quick and cheap. His life had become a careful routine of survival. He had given up on romance, believing love was a luxury reserved for others, for people who didn't have a child depending on them every single day. But today, something felt different. Today, he had an unexpected encounter that would shake his carefully constructed world. At the gate, Daniel scanned the crowd, ensuring Ethan stayed close. He adjusted the strap of his worn-out backpack inside. Flights had been delayed, luggage lost, and the airport staff seemed too busy to care. He let out a low groan, wishing for nothing more than to get home, tuck Ethan into bed, and forget the long day. But then he noticed someone staring at him across the gate. She was striking, her presence impossible to ignore. Sharp suit, perfectly polished heels, hair pulled back in a professional bun, everything about her screamed power, confidence, authority. Yet there was something softer in her eyes, a flicker of curiosity, almost kindness. Daniel tried to look away, telling himself he was too exhausted to entertain idle glances, but the woman walked toward him with purposeful steps. "Excuse me," she said, her voice smooth yet urgent. "I know this is unusual, but can I have a moment?" Daniel blinked, surprised. He barely registered the words before she continued. "Don't fly home yet." He froze, confusion washing over him. I don't understand. I know you have a flight, but I can't let you leave," she said, her eyes locking onto his. "I need you tonight." Daniel's brow furrowed, a mix of irritation and disbelief. Who was this woman? A CO? A stranger? And why on earth would she say something like that to him at an airport gate? "You don't know me," Daniel said cautiously, his voice firm but polite. "I'm just trying to get home." "I know," she said, smiling faintly. "And yet I feel like I do. Sometimes we pass people in life, and we're not supposed to let them go so easily." Daniel glanced at Ethan, who was playing with his small toy plane, completely oblivious to the tension. He felt a pang of guilt. He didn't have time for drama, for strangers who apparently felt they had the right to interrupt his life. But something in her gaze stayed with him. "Listen, I don't know what this is about," he said, trying to step past her. "I really need to." Before he could finish, she gently placed a hand on his arm, stopping him. There was an intensity in her touch that made him pause. "I'm not asking you to stay for me. I'm asking you to stay for yourself." Daniel blinked. He had no idea what she meant. "I see you," she continued softly. "I see the sacrifices you make. I see the exhaustion in your eyes. And I know what it feels like to want something more, to feel alive, even when life tells you you can't." For a moment, Daniel felt a strange vulnerability opening inside him, a door he had long closed. He looked at this woman, this stranger, and for reasons he couldn't explain, he believed her. "What are you talking about?" he whispered. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I'm talking about giving yourself a chance. Tonight. Just tonight. No expectations. No obligations. Just a moment where you can be seen, truly seen, and not just as a father or a provider, but as Daniel, the man who deserves a little happiness too." Daniel's mind raced. Was this real? Was it safe? And yet, there was a sincerity in her tone that made him hesitate. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to consider that maybe, just maybe, life wasn't over for him yet. He started, unsure how to articulate the whirlwind of thoughts and emotions inside him. She smiled again, softening the edge of her confident exterior. No need to decide right now. Just give me tonight. Before Daniel could respond, a loud announcement blared over the airport speakers. Flight 427 to Chicago now boarding at Gate 14. Daniel's stomach sank. He had made promises to Ethan, promises he always kept. Leaving him now felt impossible. But the woman seemed to read his thoughts. You won't be leaving alone, she said quickly. Bring your son. Let him meet someone who cares, even for just one night. Daniel's head spun. This was insane. Yet, beneath the madness, there was a strange comfort, a sense of hope he hadn't felt in years. He glanced down at Ethan, who looked up at him with trusting eyes, and realized. Maybe this was the push he needed. Maybe he could allow himself one night, one chance, without guilt. Okay, he whispered, more to himself than to her. One night. Her smile was radiant, a spark of light in the otherwise sterile airport atmosphere. Good. Let's make it a night to remember. They left the gate together, stepping into the city lights, leaving the hum of the airport behind. Daniel noticed how the woman seemed to navigate the city with ease, pulling him toward a small, cozy cafe tucked away from the busy streets. The ambience was warm, intimate, a stark contrast to the sterile fluorescent lighting of the airport. As they settled into a corner table, she finally introduced herself properly. I'm Isabella, she said, extending her hand. And tonight, I want to show you that life isn't just about survival. It's about moments like this. Moments that remind us we're alive. Daniel shook her hand, feeling a strange electricity in the contact. Daniel, he replied. And this is Ethan. Ethan looked up at her with shy curiosity, tugging slightly at Daniel's hand. Isabella knelt down to his level, her eyes softening. Hello, Ethan. I think your dad is one of the bravest men I've ever met. Ethan's eyes widened, and a small smile formed on his lips. Daniel felt a warmth spread through his chest. A warmth he hadn't realized he had been missing. They talked for hours, sharing stories, laughter, and even a few tears. Isabella spoke of her own struggles, the pressures of a high-powered career, and the loneliness she had endured despite her success. Daniel opened up about his fears, his hopes, and the challenges of raising Ethan alone. There was a raw honesty between them, a connection that neither had expected. At one point, Ethan fell asleep on Daniel's shoulder, exhausted from the day. Daniel looked at Isabella, who had been watching them quietly. You made tonight easier, he murmured. She smiled, a quiet, knowing smile. Sometimes, all it takes is a small interruption to remind us what really matters. Family, connection, love, the things money and power can't buy. As the night drew to a close, Daniel realized that this encounter had changed him. Not because of romance, or because of the thrill of a night spent with a stranger, but because of the reminder that life was still full of possibilities. That kindness could appear when least expected. That humanity, simple, sincere humanity, could still touch the deepest parts of the soul. When they returned to the airport the next morning, Daniel hugged Isabella tightly. Thank you, he said, voice thick with emotion, for stopping me, for reminding me that I'm allowed to hope. Isabella smiled, her eyes glistening. Don't ever forget, Daniel. Life is too short to just survive. Sometimes you have to live. They parted ways, and Daniel boarded the plane with Ethan, carrying with him a renewed sense of hope. He realized that night wasn't just a fleeting encounter, it was a turning point. A reminder that even in the midst of struggle, there is light. That kindness, when offered without expectation, has the power to change lives. As the plane lifted off, Daniel looked down at the city lights shrinking below, feeling a quiet sense of gratitude. He had been reminded that love, hope, and connection are never out of reach. And for the first time in a long while, he believed that the future could be brighter, not just for him, but for Ethan too. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person, one moment, to remind us that we are seen, that we are valued, that we are capable of more than we ever imagined. And Daniel, holding his son's hand as they soared above the clouds, knew that no matter what life threw at him next, he would never forget the night a stranger stopped him at the airport gate and simply asked him to live.